About to be. um, uh, what I believe is very important is to get people attracted to free market ideas, and I'm supposed to be like like full-time academic. I'm full professor in economics, in the field of economics, and I started a department at the University of Economics, which is a big public school, the biggest public school in the Czech Republic. But rather than doing research, I was actually very happy to change the curriculum so that every freshman will start her economic education by reading Henry Hazlitt and his economics in one lesson, and Frederick Bastiat, and then Mises and Hayek. And I believe this is what ultimately can change the world. So I used to work for a think tank, free market think tank in Prague called the Liberální Institute. I did translations of many books, including Mises' Human Action. This is what I did in Hawaii, or while in Hawaii. I translated several books by Murray Rothbard. So my kind of approach is to use academic institutions for offering an alternative, and as I said, get people excited about economics and philosophy of freedom. A couple of years ago, I got an offer and became president of a small free market college located in the very center of Prague, which is a private college. And there now sort of do the provision of alternative education, free market flavor in economic policy, political philosophy, and even law and public administration. So I'm teaching to people who wanted, before they entered my class, they wanted to become public servants. And then I lecture to them about the harmful benefits of governmental regulations and hope that ultimately they will change their mind. And for example, then after finishing their BA in public administration, they will go into like business or law and business for their master's degrees. And I'm here today to perhaps give you the second introductory lecture so that you understand better where you are. And I don't intend to lecture because you are not students after all, but I have a couple of points to mention about the opportunity that opened for us 20 years ago with the fall of communism. But before I do it, I want to publicly appreciate once again what my predecessor here talked about. There is one difference between Czech Republic and Slovakia. In Czech Republic, and I'm a kind of example of it, there is a possibility to be like free market professor and teach and have hundreds of students or thousands of students, and have followers, younger faculty members, and have theses written on free banking or on some kind of libertarian aspects of economic policy. In Slovakia, this is not possible. In Slovakia, universities are still either completely unreformed. The old public universities are still here, and you do not see a young generation of people who would bring some kind of free market flavor. So public education here in Slovakia is not excellent at all. And there are some public schools as well, private schools, newly built or newly founded private schools, but even there you do not find free market there. So that is why a couple of my students, including Richard Durana, who spoke before me, these are, I have known these people since 12 or 10 years ago. They came to learn about free market to Prague, and they attended seminars and summer schools we did at that time with the help of our free market friends from both Europe and the United States. and then got back. There was no place for them at university, so they decided to start a think tank. And this INES is an example. It started as a very small, and it still is a small institution. These were actually like 3 friends who finished university. And they said, okay, well, let's do something to strengthen the freedom message in Slovakia. And within a couple of years, these 3 people actually managed to dominate public debate in Slovakia. And I guess this is a strong message for those who are not optimistic about the future of freedom, that you do not need crowds. Well, ultimately you need crowds, but for like delivering the message, for like starting the fire, very few people can do miracles. And what is indeed needed is to have dedication, to understand the game you are playing, however, not to compromise. And Ines is a wonderful example. 3 people on the one hand and like 5 million Slovaks on the other. And many, there's like many educational institutions or even think tanks which should compete with that. But these 3 people are so good that actually they have beaten all the competitors, I mean. And I keep my fingers crossed for them because they are actually, in many respects, doing better job than we do in the Czech Republic. They're playing different game, but perhaps this is what is more needed than to have like free market professor who can nicely talk about some market-oriented policies. We'll see what works better, but in any case, just this is note that this is very unique what they have managed in Slovakia. 20 years ago, both Czechs and Slovaks with the fall of communism, got the chance to change their economic and political systems, and indeed many things were done. The reason also was that there was like no other way than a journey toward more freedom, because 20 years ago, like 100% of land was state-owned, 100% of businesses were state-owned. So you couldn't have some kind of other than pro-free market reform. And there was a lot of hope at that time. And especially, that a leading voice behind that was, at that time, finance minister, a free marketeer who later became prime minister and later became president, Václav Klaus, who was touring the world giving beautiful speeches about fast economic reforms, about the need to go to full-fledged free market with no adjectives. He said there is no middle road leads to socialism, and he spoke like, Friedrich August von Hayek with Mises together or combined. And based on his rhetoric, many free market institutions, such as, let's say, Heritage Foundation in the United States, who were at that point putting together economic freedom indices based on what was told about this region to the rest of the world. They actually started to rank us on the very top of freedom ranking. It was like Hong Kong, Switzerland, New Zealand, United States, and then Czech Republic. Unfortunately, this was all wishful thinking. At that time, or if you want to have like market-based economic and social order, you have to have meaningful prices, meaning you have to have private property traded, and you have to have like prices as an outcome of this exchange of private property titles. However, for more than 10 years after the fall of communism, all major banks in Czechoslovakia at that time, Czech Republic and Slovakia, all major banks were in state hands. And one of the reasons was that the reformers at that time believed that it's actually part of a smart strategy toward market economy. They argued that spending is good. If banks started to adopt like normal like regime towards firms, they would not want to lend them because most of the firms were actually bankrupt. And they believe this is a political danger to have like mass unemployment and bankruptcies. And that's why they supported deliberately politicized lending for many years. Now, my talk is called like the failure of desocialization. This is like point number one. How do you want to desocialize when you have like state-owned banks and politicized lending? I mean, what good can come out of it? Yes, you can have some, economic activities going on based on this cheap money policy, but nothing that would be sustainable. And indeed, at the end of the day, we paid the price, and all banks actually were bailed out, and only then sort of sold to foreign banks. But sold is a pretty strong word. They were given for free after governments have spent billions on bailing them out. So this was something which I guess contributed mainly to the problem of insufficient desocialization. Second thing, which I now feel strongly about, is the area of schools, of university schools and other schools as well. If you have a regime which is based on propaganda, such as socialism until 1989, and then you want to sort of open up and get back to like normal state of affair, you want to have private schools. You have to have like newcomers to the system that would maybe now for the first time tell the students, how it is. But what happened in our case was that one of the first things adopted after the fall of communism was the sort of Western style academic independence. Meaning the communists who controlled the schools said, hey, now nobody will have nothing to say about us here. We cannot be fired. We will sort of govern ourselves. We will form all the academic bodies and all the accreditation bodies. The only thing we need is money flowing to our pockets, and then we are now like Western-style university professors. So rather than getting rid of these people who were actually brainwashing generations of students, these people stayed there and managed to become gatekeepers and preventing like newcomers from competing with them. This is one of the reasons why Slovakian public schools are in such a bad shape. In Czech Republic, from time to time, and also because of more contacts with the West, these things, from time to time, it became possible to have newcomers to universities, to have open system, to have some cross-border competition, whereas here in Slovakia, it's far from that. And indeed, the sad heritage of socialist schooling is that schools are for free until now. So we are like 20 years after the fall of communism, and we pay nothing for public schools. When Czech government a few years ago attempted to establish a small flat fee so that students pay at least something, it was in the amount of like 500 euros or whatever, $700 per year. Students started to protest in the streets and said, this is a violation of the Constitution, this is a violation of our right for free education. So the so-called right-wing government stepped back and said, okay, then we see it's impossible. So again, what kind of quality you can get in terms of what people learn about the world, you can get from university education, which is fully funded by the state, and it's for free. And what kind of competition, sort of fair competition it is when you have private schools, such as the one I'm president of, small school which says, all right, so we want to provide an alternative. We want to show our students that you can study economic policy or political philosophy, in a different way. How can you do it when your competitors are all completely for free? And in addition to it, professors from these public schools control all the accreditation processes and all the rest of it. So that, I did one attempt in, well, put simply, I have a partner university, the most free market school in Great Britain, University of Buckingham. I copied their curriculum and sort of submitted it to Czech accreditation authority, saying, you see, I want to do something different from the rest of universities. I want to have here a program which combines economic policy, law, and political science. Would you give me accreditation for it? And they indeed submitted my application to all these, like old professors that has never seen anything else than, anything else than what they are used to in the Czech Republic over the last half a century. And they said, what kind of crazy combination is this? If you want to study, political science, then do political science. If you want to do economic policy, do economic policy. Don't mix it together. Students will be confused. You will not get students. And I said, well, by the way, this is our business. If we offer like stupid curriculum, nobody will want to study with us. Then we go bankrupt like the next semester, right? But I was not successful. So then we had to. So the point is, you have to compete with somebody who is like completely for free. And second, you cannot innovate, because if you innovate, they say, this is something which is not appropriate. Many things got sort of privatized or freed after the fall of communism. Yes, that's true. But still, the overall redistribution is something close to 50%. So half of the economy is politicized. And many of the key sectors either were in public hands like for a very long time, such as banks, or are under state control until now, still 20 years after the fall of communism. such as schools, and by the way, such as hospitals, and such as many other things, such as pension scheme. We still have the old pension scheme. So then, where is the radical reform which gave many people, both in Europe and in the West, so much hope? Because, yes, communism ended, but what we got instead? We got a sort of Western-style welfare state with high redistribution and heavily politicized key sector of the economy, from health to education. And we got it without being rich. So I believe if the window of opportunity after the fall of communism was to be utilized productively, then indeed you have to act fast, that's clear. But before interest groups newly form. But then when you do the reform, you really have to do it substantially. And indeed, it's no surprise if I tell you that if you want to get the Western standard of living, you have to avoid Western style of current taxation. You have to go to the policies which made this increase of wealth possible. And we didn't do it. Instead, we became members of the European Union. So we became part of the process of political centralization of Europe, which is another disaster. Because it forces all of us, Czechs, Slovaks, and Poles, and others, to harmonize economic policies, which is not good. And second,
but harmony sounds good.
Yeah, harmony is good. Yeah, but second, all the experimentation, which could perhaps bring some, real effects, now it is impossible. And both in Czech Republic and Slovakia, the reform governments, which after all didn't reform that much, but at least the rhetoric was there, and from time to time they managed to do something. Though we can debate, how good it was, such as flat tax in Slovakia, or some privatization schemes in the Czech Republic. But now it seems to be completely over. You have Slovakia now fully controlled by socialists, coming up with their crazy policies. In the Czech Republic, it is the same story. Simply classical liberal or libertarian doctrines are not fashionable anymore. They were for some time. But as the consequences of half-baked policies were not perfect, many people lost their hope. And now the window of opportunities which existed for 10, maybe 15 years seems to be closed. And what now we are getting is that we are losing our collective memories, if something like that exists. And that's exactly because of the economic integration process, European subsidies. There is a lot of money flowing first from the state level to the European Union, which is then redistributed back. First cause or consequence of that is indeed omnipresent corruption. So, which sometimes it's funny that several of Czech members of parliament are now in jail, and because they were caught by having in their plastic bag a couple of millions of euros, giving bribes or getting bribes and getting bribes to somebody else. So you see, it's public choice, real life public choice, through or as a result of European Union money spent on national economies through the political process. So this corruption came. But the second thing, from time to time, they actually managed to build something with the money, be it roads, or be it schools, or be it hospitals. And now what we see is that as you walk through the cities of both Czech Republic and Slovakia, you see the European flag on like every other building, and which sends the message to the general public, like you see, because of the European Union, we have roads. Without it, we wouldn't have it. Because of the European Union, we have hospitals. Without it, we wouldn't have it. Every exercise facility, every library is now full of these little European Union flags. And then the stories that this is what we got because of the political centralization in Europe, and it's very difficult to avoid it. Or when I'm walking with my children and they ask me what these flags mean. How can I explain them? Because the message and the brainwashing propaganda that goes with it, it's very strong and is everywhere. So when problems hit our societies towards the end of the 80s, people understood, yes, there is a problem, and they understood quite easily why we had these problems. They identified well the source of the problem, communism, center planning, and all that goes with it, and said, okay, well, if we want to solve it, we have to bring more freedom and entrepreneurship and so on, profit making, wealth creation to our economies. Now we are in trouble with the rest of the world mostly, or at least Europe and the West. But people today misidentify the problems. They misidentify the source of the problems. And I'm afraid that the solutions people see will have the flavor of socialism and communism of some sort. We see it now in the southern part of Europe. When you see people in Greece protesting, waving red flags of communism. I guess here in Central Europe, that's not still the case. People would not want to go back, but I believe it's only a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
You need a new generation born under the current system, have no personal relation and no experience with the communism before, and they might want to try this sort of alternative in the future. And I hope that this is exactly what we have to do and why we have to be active and try many ways and be innovative and try to spread the message of liberty.